Jonas, good morning. How are you?
Hi, Jos. I'm doing good. Uh, I guess let's see who's joining today.
Yeah.
Um, I, it's
I
it's
saw the I saw the poll email from you. I thought that was a junk because it came with some different email or something very I
yeah,
didn't
it
respond
was
that.
a
Yeah.
little bit weird because I had to sign up
Oh,
for this, and you can sign up and you can do a poll,
uh-huh.
but it's where you only get a basic poll if you don't pay, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I didn't want to sign up with HPE credentials because
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
know how much junk mail and stuff I'm gonna
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
from.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah.
But I only got one reply, and that was from Rafal.
Okay.
And
Okay. I will do that today. I will provide my.
yeah, it's more of a if there is a better time, because I think that uh, Alex, I think
Hmm.
John Leong and others raised that this is a really bad time in the week.
I
But
see.
then then when I don't get any answers from
Yeah.
these guys, it's
Feedback.
difficult
Right.
to. So I didn't move it. I basically just left it where it is. So that
Okay.
means that today we might have a situation where we don't have any quorum. And if we don't have quorum, we only have basically one topic to discuss, and perhaps we can provide some input then,
Hmm.
and that would be for the Fabric plugin proposal. But the others, I could go. We could go through the conclusions then, and just say, is there anything that is misaligned with other people's understanding? And if that's not the case,
Yeah.
we could vote on it when we have quorum. But for today, we only have basic. Oh shit! I need to change my. We have HPE and AMI, right? Oh, we have Intel. Okay, so we
Alex,
have
yes.
we have
Wonderful.
3 out of 5, so we could
Yeah.
vote. Hold on.
Hello,
HPE.
Alex. Hello, Martin.
Hi there. Hello.
Hello. Uh, I need to change to a more suitable window here. Okay. Yeah, so what I did write up, uh, I don't know if you guys looked at the minutes. I had some minutes around the conclusions, and I had also some, I updated the proposals page in itself to, so if we look at the proposal, okay, let me see if I can share my screen here. Hopefully I shared the right one and all that stuff. Just need to get out of some apps before. So Alex, did you get the poll, the dual poll there, or what happened? I mean,
I just realized that I forgot to fill that out.
yeah, nobody. It's only Rafal that filled it out.
Yeah,
So that's why I didn't move the
so
meeting.
yeah,
So
I sorry about that.
yeah, no
For
worries.
me basically anything from Wednesday morning on would probably work. So yeah, let me fill that out right now.
And then if I share now, do you guys see my web browser highlighting the TSC proposal meeting? Or?
Yes.
Okay, good. Technology works. That's awesome. So then some of the discussion topics. That first out, we have some conclusion of the composition service, and we said that it needs to align with the Redfish specification. And then if a newer model is adopted that is not yet in the spec, it will have to live on its own branch. So with that, I think we talked a little bit about perhaps there are some enough direction in the task force, the composition task force, enough to start developing a service that actually complies with that, just like similar to what we did with the aggregation service even though it hadn't open sourced then. But we say that if that is the approach, that should live in its own branch, and we can lift it in once the spec is out, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to have a standalone service in a non-Golang language, but integration of base services have to happen. Here we have some updates. Excuse me. So Go Micro, which has been used as a framework for in ODIM, is using gRPC under the hood, but that thing was licensed Apache 2.0 from version 3, where they support things like etcd for key value type of things. They changed license, so now they are on a commercial license. And this is obviously a big showstopper, right, for an open source project. We are still on version 1.14.3 in ODIM, and it's pinned, but it highlights the need to move away from Go Micro. And so we will have to have a discussion in the project. What do we do instead? And we have some internal discussions now with some proposals that we want to share when we're ready. It's kind of new and raw, this, so we are not ready to share that, but just to plant the seed there, in that if we go the gRPC route instead, we don't need to have some sort of a sidecar loading. Then that will be available for any type. So if all services are using gRPC between the services, you can be a standalone composition service and get access to everything, right? It just ties into that, so that's why I'm highlighting it.
gRPC is great for communication within a given service, especially if you use a microservice pattern to deploy that business service. But if we're going to talk about standalone services like composition, in some sense, I don't even know what standalone means. All these services should be self-contained, loosely coupled, but highly aligned in a model-driven way. That's my advice, is that we go that route. And so from that perspective, we can choose whatever interface semantics we want, whether it's gRPC or REST, because these services might be much easier to integrate using REST. But within a service, you should be free to use whatever, gRPC can certainly be used. My point is that regardless of how we slice and dice this, I think there's got to be some shared state somewhere, and represented as a model. And so I think we're going to end up with a utility service potentially that provides that model management capability and allows us to create, maybe more of an object-centric kind of communication mechanism between services. I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me that anyone can bring in something down the line that could be written in anything from JavaScript to Go to God knows what else. And the only way to do implementation agnostic integrations is through, something like web services or REST.
Yeah. I get all that, and I think what we're saying here, and we don't have to mention standalone service, but I think what we're saying here is that we should have an architecture that allows for somebody to implement the service in a different type of language, right, than Go.
Yes, and also we should support the notion of subsetting and substitution, right? So if somebody wants to take the open source reference implementation and subset it, meaning provide a subset of functionalities, because for their purpose, that's what they want, they should be able to do that in a meaningful way that doesn't require us to rewrite everything. And the same is true for substitutions. If I have my own aggregation service that adds value for things that are not yet part of the open source, or maybe will never be, well, I should be able to offer that. Same thing for composition, same thing for other things, right?
Yep.
So
I agree.
Yeah, so to me, the only, so if we take those three things, or those kind of architectural principles, as a given, right? Model driven, the notion of being able to subset and substitute or extend, right? And implementation, language binding independence as another principle. Then the integration has to be done in some way between these services, has to be done, and there are only a few ways to go there.
Yep. But I think in order for us to vote on this, I think well, first I wanted us to agree on the conclusions. So I think you are in agreement, Alex, that there are much more details that we need to poke at. But in any case, I think for us to say, if you want to put a new service in ODIM, you have to go with Golang. It has to be part of the stack. We would have a pretty inflexible architecture, and that's what we need to stay away from.
Yes, and that was actually, if you think about the diagrams that we kind of produced that were more kind of future looking, if we look at some of them, they were kind of hinting at this notion of loosely coupled, but well integrated, management services that implement different parts of the API or implement extensions that we're not even aware of yet. So,
okay, and so that's on these conclusions. I want to reach out here to AMI and specifically ask them if you are in line with these conclusions or if you have any further input, because this is basically going to lead to that you rewrite your proposal a little bit. You will need to steer away from the RSD terminology, and then you need to take a decision if you want to implement something according to the existing spec or if you want to align with the upcoming changes somehow. So that's why I'm calling you out here a little bit.
I thought okay, I'll let them answer, but I kind of thought we discussed this last time, didn't we?
We did. Because I wrote the minutes afterwards, my interpretation of a conclusion might differ from theirs. I just wanted to call it out. So, Jos and Muthu, what are your thoughts here?
Hello everyone, this is Muthu. Sorry, I was caught up in another meeting. I joined a little late. I see all these decisions, conclusions here. We will go through it and we will come up with a new proposal.
Okay.
Jos, if you want to add more details, please.
Yeah. So Muthu, the way I would see it, and also let's go one by one. Let's make sure that, if there is any question, I want to make sure that you ask it, right? So composition service, Redfish spec, we are aligning.
Yeah.
And if a newer model is out, that is out of question, so we don't have to worry about that. Standalone service, that is also fine. That is also we are agreeing, so no question about that.
Yeah, could we say self-contained as opposed
that
to
should be, that is a better term. Yeah, that's a better wording.
And that would then give us the
okay to have a self-contained service. Yeah.
So, excuse me, guys. This is Rafa. I just want to understand, because if the composer wants to be a standalone from the, let's say, resource aggregator platform or ODIM platform, as we want to call it, it is fine to just use the the API that ODIM is exposing. But if the composer wants to be integrated within the ODIM platform, then it needs to stick to the rules like the gRPC or REST, whatever we conclude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my thinking was that, whichever, if somebody wants to subset ODIM to exclude a composition service and then offer it separately, the composition, they could do that. If they wanted to be part of ODIM,
Sure.
they could define the integration semantics. But the services themselves could be self-contained because of language issues. And what they need to be able to do is to interoperate based on a model. And then the question is, how do we make that happen, right? In a loosely coupled way.
Yep.
And not just language choice, Alex, right? Also for scalability, right? Now,
Of course, because, we may choose to, your commercial distro, or even what we do in ODIM and open source, that could, evolve over time, for scalability's sake. Yeah. I agree.
So if each microservice, if each of these services like resource aggregator or composite, they are developed in a self-contained way that aligns with the microservices best practices, then the end customer who consumes this have a choice to use them selectively, as Jonas, and also scalably, right? If they want to assume if there are thousands of nodes, and if they need multiple resource aggregators deployed and one composition service talking to, we don't know how this is going to end up in the future, right? But developing them in a microservices compliant way with self-contained concept, it allows us to address those future needs easily, right?
And I would even say that not everything has to be microservice.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's not, because microservices bring about sprawl, right? And so there will be components that really need to scale out, and microservices is a good pattern to use. And there will be parts of ODIM that may not have the same scalability requirements. So why force a particular way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
Or if I, let's say, Intel or somebody else wants to re-implement a particular service, right? With additional features or maybe a different set of algorithms on the inside, as long as we're compliant with the interface, the integration and interop interfaces, we're good.
Yep.
And I think we are in violent agreement here. And certainly, when you say, Alex, we don't need to have a microservice, I mean, there are things, the use case that are awesome and very good fit with microservices, but then there seems to have been a trend in the industry to go with microservices for absolutely everything, and sometimes it's not needed. So I agree with that as well. But we need to have a way to have these independent, self-contained services to be able to communicate, and that's where we need to move, right? So I think this discussion around the whole composition service has been a very healthy one for all of us here.
Yeah. So two aspects. So the next point, right? The gateway, API gateway. I think that is a good segue to address this, right? If these two, like resource aggregator and composition service, are self-contained implementations, then the gateway should be independent of this and should be above these two so that it routes them accordingly.
Yes.
Yeah, there's more to that though. I mean, I think there is also let's say I talk to ODIM through a certain port and what have you, and then, in order to be able to utilize services, I will have to authenticate. Otherwise, I will just get to the root, right? So I do an authentication. And if I see the root tree come back, and here is the composition service, and then I try to hit that. If you're not authenticated, now you need to authenticate again. I think that makes up for a poor architecture, at least a poor experience in my mind. So I think we should, and this comes back to the self-contained services being able to communicate. We should have the certain mechanisms, like for instance sessions and these type of things, be applicable to all services.
So typically the AAA is associated with the gateway functionality.
Yes. And also, if we make the API gateway functionality, again, be kind of focused, the interfaces itself are really operations on managed objects that are part of the model, then the mapping between the external API and the internal invocations could be done through the API gateway. And no one needs to know what the internal interfaces look like, but but externally we could make things object centric, right? So we have a certain set of objects in the model, and we can perform certain operations on them. And if we have a way of codifying that in the API, great, we're done, right? And that could translate into anything that you want to do internally.
So, meaning the API gateway means like the northbound composition service APIs are exposed through the API gateway, like the API, ODIM API server, right?
Let's say we have a system object, right? And I may have a compose operation on it, and that would be routed to a composition service. Or I may have some other operation that invokes an operation on that system, or a collection of systems, right? We need to kind of start thinking in terms of, typical way of doing this would be to look at personas from an operational IT ops perspective who are going to be using these tools, and kind of try and understand what kind of tasks they would want to perform, right? And then the APIs should reflect some mapping between those tasks and the verbs and the nouns being the objects and the verbs being the operations, right? So, if my use case says I want to compose a VMware cluster by composing 32 systems based on a manifest, right? I ought to be able to express that independent of how things are implemented under the covers. It could be a pass-through, but may not be.
Yeah. But those are details. I think what we're saying here is that we want to have a united experience, right? So you don't
Yes.
want to have to hit different type of IP addresses and ports for different services.
Yeah, you can also control public IP blocks this way very well, right? Because, like anything else that's going to be externally available on the web or whichever way this is going to be used, you kind of want to make sure that, you don't need to worry about spoofing or anything else across all your services. Just put it in one place.
Meaning the composition service, though it is a self-contained and exposing the APIs, that should be exposed through the API gateway to the outside world as part of the ODIM.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. With this caveat that once there's the operation to the composition service, it will be authenticated by the gateway using account service or any other.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly. So I noticed that Louise is not here. So I'm worried that there is no recording. Do we have the power to record it? Because I do want to. I have a hard time taking it.
Jonas,
It says recording.
We are recording.
Yeah, there is
a red button saying recording. So I think.
Oh yeah, I think it's not here because I'm sharing my desktop. Sorry. Okay, good. Because I think we should. So if you look at then the proposal here, right? Composition service I have seen set pending here, and I think that still holds true then, because you guys are gonna come back and basically give a new proposal, right? Not a new, but an updated one. So what I would do here is just I will just update this to that a new proposal will be put forward.
Based on the Redfish schema, Redfish composition.
So do we? Based on Redfish. So should we officially vote then on this one? I guess.
Well, what's there to vote? It's still pending, so we can either vote to approve or disapprove.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. And the BMC simulator, I got that we have already approved that. And then the Redfish support for data center fabrics, that's a document that Martin has worked on. And that was decided that it will be split into 2 papers. Martin, are you happy with the on hold here, or do we need to have some, should it be removed or should, and you add a new proposal once you have the 2 papers, or what's the deal? What are your thoughts? Perhaps I need to poke Martin a little bit here. Martin, are you there? Okay. Ping. Well, I'm not sure we're getting anything from him, so I guess.
Sorry, Jonas.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. I chose the exact wrong time to go and get a coffee.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. No worries. So yeah, for this thing, we have this Redfish support for data centers, and right now we're saying it's going to be split into 2 papers. Do we remove this and then you enter a new proposal?
Yeah, I think there's no point having it like that because it'll be a bit of a different document. So let's do that.
Let's see if I can do that then. There is some magic here, right?
There is magic.
Be able to delete.
There's magic and dragons up there.
What the heck, man? This is what I don't like.
You just need to edit the page you're looking at, right?
Oh, I'm editing. I'm here, right? I just need to delete this raw, and You know, wikis should be
Well,
all
what
about.
go left,
Do you
left,
see?
left,
Do you see
left.
on the
There.
top? There's some
There you
buttons with.
Boom, done.
Mm.
Okay,
There.
and then the Dell server community plugin, that's where we need to vote. And this one, I think, is we start with the generic Redfish plugin. That's what we said, and we're going to add. We're going to create a new type of branch, and we're going to add mapping to populate properties that are mandated by the profiles, which, by the way, is I can give you an update on later. Support of events and local storage are high ones. And the concept of getting this plugin approved, it means that somebody can grab this and run with it, preferably not HPE. But I haven't had a stream of emails from participating companies indicating that they love to contribute this plugin. So, but still we can.
So give me. I'm still kind of working that and trying to figure out if we can do that as well as plugins for other hardware suppliers. We already have a fleet management tool for physical infrastructure that already has plugins for Dell, HPE, and not just in Redfish, but IPMI, ILO, whatever the flavor of the day is, we have that. And so I've been asking that team to kind of, we're meeting, we're sort of in the midst of kind of trying to figure out if that particular part of that tool can be open sourced and put into ODIM.
Yeah, that would be one solution. But so that's a good one. I heard from you last time about this. Yeah, so if you can get that moving, that would be great.
Meetings with them, but again, they kind of, this team is obviously, they're trying to kind of rationalize if they do that, how would anything have to be refactored or how it would look. So we're kind of working our way through that. I have another meeting with them today.
So on that one, can we vote to approve it? I.e., we know that we want to get it developed. It's this stuff is kind of how we're going to get it developed.
Yeah, so I just posted in the chat window, TSC vote on the Dell plugin, yes or no? Now? Oh crap! Oh, sorry.
Yes or now?
I mean, yeah, it's my I type stuff that my brain.
So it sounds like there's just one option, right?
Well, it's yes, it's a +1 or a -1 or a 0.
Yeah.
Abstain.
So only one TSC member from each company then, and in my case, I will say Jonas, HPE.
So go, Alex.
I already did.
+1.
I said Intel +1.
And then we don't have. Who do we have? We have AMI as well, right?
Yes.
So Joe's or Muthu, if you guys want to vote.
So we have five official members and 3 are present. So we.
Yeah, we need to have 100% +1, otherwise we can't approve it, right?
Well, yeah, but in this case, it's kind of like the election. Statistically, it's impossible to overturn this decision if AMI votes yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can take it to court. Oh, sorry.
That's exactly. I could claim fraud, but
yeah, unless you're the president, of course.
Yeah.
This is going the wrong direction, guys.
Sorry.
Okay, so here we are. So we are approved. Plug in. Okay, I had to leave the screen sharing in order to get to the chat thing. My apologies. And now I'm gonna then share this one again. And quickly move here. Am I still editing this? I think so. This one then.
Approved.
Yeah, approved. Okay, so we have done awesome work today. There is a Cisco what do you call that? APIC or APIC controller plugin. That's for the Cisco Fabric Manager. That's another proposal.
Yep.
We don't have an open source Fabric Manager today because the one that we have is that plugin is not open source unfortunately. So we know this, that a lot of telcos specifically are using Cisco. So this is a plugin for that. And that's just a proposal that you wrote up, Martin. So do you want to talk about this one? Because we didn't have time last time.
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically as you described. Cisco is by far the most dominant switch fabric vendor in telecoms industry, and for the majority of those deployments, they use Cisco's what they call the ACI solution, and so the controller is called APIC. And so what we're proposing as part of this project is that, you know, in order to encourage networking vendors to look at this solution a bit more, you know, seriously, is if we built an open source plugin to Cisco's APIC. Now, Cisco's APIC's got a very rich northbound API, and so what we do for the plugin is build a subset, obviously, of that API for specific, you know, fairly constrained use cases, and then you know, hopefully, you know, the industry will start picking up on that in terms of looking at how we can coordinate the management of, you know, compute storage as well as, you know, switch fabrics, all as part of the same API set, right? So that's the idea, is, you know, it's to encourage the networking industry to participate in this.
Martin, the network fabric model that is being proposed by HP, is that in alignment with what this plugin would entail?
Well, it's a great question, but actually it's not. So just to be clear, that the fabric plugin isn't proposed by HPE, right? The fabric model is the fabric model from Redfish, and that you know, so that's now part of the spec.
Less important.
Yeah, but Martin, but by end of the day, let's say the fabric model needs to be translated into the, let's say, fabric manager API, and this is the job of this plugin itself, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. And so I've done some investigation on that, and in terms of the API and the way that they build the model for APIC, and it aligns very, very nicely with what we've done with Redfish.
Good. So what we have is rich enough to accommodate the native APIs for APIC.
Yeah, I think so.
I think what Martin is saying is that the APIs for APIC are so rich, so they have enough functionality to satisfy our fabric model, but there is plenty more that is in there, and that is something that we can either, you know, approach DMTF and ask them to enhance the fabric model. And I think there are some discussions going on around things like QoS and these type of things for fabrics. But for now, it should be easy. It shouldn't be easy. I mean, I'm saying it's possible to create a plugin to map from back and forth from Redfish to APIC, right?
Yeah, without having to do sort of unholy acts as part of that.
So we would need some, you know, design document or some, you know, write up on the translation, right? Which API on the fabric model translates into the APIC model. That'd be before.
Yeah,
correct.
That's why it's unfortunate that our plugin is closed source. But it would be good to. I mean, we have done profiles for networking as well, so we know what properties are mandated, right? Which is obviously something that we can change. It's just a proposal. Once we're done with this plugin, I'll give you an update on the profiles. But in any case, that's where we are. So it's absolutely something that we could probably produce some documentation for.
Hey, Martin, do you know Ed Warnicki?
No.
So Ed is a distinguished engineer for Cisco.
Okay.
His specialty is FIDO, Open Daylight. He is actually actively driving those communities. He's also works with a CNCF. And he does a lot of open source. I wonder if there's I wonder if we can reach out to him and see if he could drive Cisco's contribution in this front, on this front.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, did you want to make an intro and we'll set up a call? Or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, I can probably do that. I'm connected with him, so I can send him an email, and then we can see what we can see. I know that he's been involved in lots of open source communities over the years, and you know, he's would be a pretty good advocate to have inside Cisco.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that'd be great.
And I
Thanks.
kind of figure since he's involved with FIDO and Open Daylight, then you know, could be interesting to tie that in as well from the underlay perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we look at this from a, is this a reasonable plugin? I think what ODIM is missing today is, well, so it's missing the multi-vendor thing, and we get that with this Dell plugin potentially. It's also missing networking as far as if you want to clone ODIM and show it to some customer, we don't have any networking, open source networking components. So this will sort of bridge that gap.
Yeah, if you want to make
enough?
it multi-vendor, it's not enough to make it on the compute side networking as well.
That I totally agree with, but one proposal at a time, right? But I because there are others, right? Junipers and others we could look at. But is this enough to vote on this, or does somebody have some sort of you know, like another thing that we need to bring into this discussion?
Yeah.
Other angle. Yep.
I haven't fully kind of formulated the plan or the proposal, if you will, but potentially there needs to be an interface or some mechanism to, and this is a new thing, right? This is not a, it's a potentially a new service and potentially a new interface inside Redfish, but the
it's
ability.
Not a new service. It's not a new service. It's more of just a new plugin, actually.
Well, what I have, okay, so let me kind of, maybe I'm jumped the gun here a little bit. So in terms of additional plugins or whatnot, I don't have anything, but I do believe we're going to need to enable potentially some way of injecting policies, rules, inference models, and other kinds of things into an ODIM instance for consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no interface like that exists that I know of. And so if we eventually would want these management services inside ODIM, you know, be model-driven, not model-driven, but be ML-based or policy-driven or whatnot, we would want to have something like that, I think. I haven't fully kind of, I need to kind of write something up on this front. And
so I kind of didn't understand you. So what is, there is an existing Fabric plugin today with the current architecture in ODIM.
This is not about Fabric. This is across the board, you know, being able to do things inside ODIM that.
Yeah. So how do you tie it back to this plugin voting thing?
I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I definitely said I jumped the gun. Maybe a little.
Yeah. No worries. I just wanted to know if we need to hold off while you go and think about this for a while.
No. Yeah, that would be a separate proposal that we would add to the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
I do apologize, guys. Martin, can you take over? There is a call about my roofer is calling. I need to grab it. Sorry.
Yeah, can do. So, well, not that he's dropped me in this at all. So, do we? Is there enough to be going on with to do a vote for this, or is this for the Fabric one, or is it too early?
I think it would be good to see what we're actually going to do in more concrete terms, right?
Yeah, I double that. We should probably get some more insight on the APIs from Open Fabric, from the Fabric Manager of Cisco, as well as how it ties to the Fabric model.
Yeah, okay. So if we have some sort of proposal, like the one that we wrote up for the unmanaged rack plugin, that type of thing, then for this one, that sort of description would be useful then, I guess.
It sounds good, yeah.
Okay, so what we're saying, sorry, I do apologize. It's just that we had a windstorm that took off part of my roof, and this guy, I have been chasing him, and now finally calls me. I just couldn't let that go, sorry.
No.
But so we're saying on this proposal is that you want to have a more elaborate document on it, or is
well, just have a writer, like we did for the unmanaged rack plugin.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem there, Martin, is this is not a problem. I mean, if you're willing to take it on, the issue is that like what we had for the plugin, we basically, for the other thing, we just basically published that document, right? We don't have one for this one, do we? So you have to write that.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, so I'll take a note here that we will push this vote out till we have more details done.
Yeah.
Push this vote out till.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair enough.
A document describing.
I think, Jonas, I wonder if there's a two-part sort of approval here, if you really want to kind of be precise, right? So to me, there's sort of the inception of this proposal, which no one is objecting to. And then, in order for us to commit to actually doing something, more details are needed. And it's likely to be the case across the board. There may be additional proposals that we can say we approve them from an inception perspective, but we would not fully commit to doing them until, we do a secondary look with more details proposed.
Yeah, and I have just to show you again, I do have two of those now, right? Let me remove this. So we have the pending here on the composition service, and then we have pending on this plugin now as well. And I just took a note here that we will need to have a document describing the mapping and things. Yeah. And Martin will work on that. Okay, good.
Good.
I don't think we had anything else as far as proposals today, and we did an awesome job here. Is there anything else somebody wants to bring up? I can talk just 5 minutes about the profiles. That's okay. No objections. So let me do that.
By the way, Jonas, before you start, about the profiles, I spent some time on looking at the OPAS profile. I was talking to you, and I put under the proposal for BMC simulator the file, the attachment spreadsheet, which shows the properties endpoints which are mandatory and recommended for the OPAS profile. And this would be the base for the BMC simulator.
Okay. Yeah, so what we ran into here is a couple of things. First, obviously, I goofed and I used underscore for versions, and that made the validation tool crash. So that needs to be dots instead, and we have updated that. Secondly, there are some bugs in the validation tool that we have discovered. For instance, in the ODIM event service, we have listed the submit test event action as recommended, but not mandatory. But then the submit test event action has some properties that we have listed as mandatory. But obviously they are mandatory if you implement this action, if that action is implemented.
Right,
still the validation tool complains about.
Yeah, for that reason, if you look at the OPAS profile, which is available under my proposal, the OPAS profile uses something like if implemented. So for some endpoints, let's look at chassis. Chassis has a power and thermal, and in the OPAS profile, both of these are if implemented, but under those specific endpoints, you will see a bunch of mandatory properties.
So we can try change it to that. That's actually a good idea. But I talked to Jeff Otter today, and he said that this is a bug. It shouldn't. If it says recommended and it's not there, it should disregard all the properties. But I can try with if implemented instead.
If implemented has stronger meaning, and I've seen it used in other places. It's basically says, if you do choose to do this, we care, and if you don't, then obviously it's not.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We also discovered a bug in the tool where, you know, we say if you are a chassis and you are of chassis type rack or rack group, then you need to have location implemented, and the tool did not handle that. Instead, it choked and said fail. You need to have location, even on a chassis that is of chassis type rack. Oh, sorry, chassis type rack mount. So there are some issues with the tool, and we are working through those. But we could potentially share. I mean, is it of benefit to anybody that we upload the profile as is, even though they are in flight and drafty? Because that way we can have something for you guys.
I think
to
it
look
makes
at.
sense to have the latest, greatest, work in progress on, uploaded.
Even if it's work in progress, you think we should upload it. I'm happy to do that, right? It's just need to be people need to be aware that we have this. It's ongoing, right? Rafael, do you feel that we should do that? Just create the branch
I think so.
and stick the profiles in there.
Absolutely, it'd be also useful for our BMC simulator work.
Yeah, and then we can log those issues in Git, and you can see the progress and if anybody has any input that could be provided and so on. Yeah, that's a good idea. So let's do that. That's what I have on the profiles. Anything else from anybody? Okay, should we get some time back then, perhaps?
Yes, why not?
Sounds like a good plan.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. I'll look for the recording and I'll write up some minutes. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.